Broadcasting live from a sweet Kamigawa swamp. On the plain of Kamigawa, I guess. This is Tap Tap Concede. Welcome, everybody, to Tap Tap Concede. Check out those cool basics. My name is Graham, and joining me, as ever, is Cameron.
Hi.
And Nelson.
Also here.
And today we're going to be talking about a bunch of stuff while we wait for more Kamigawa spoilers. Yeah. If you see some Kamigawa spoilers and you're like, I want to get some of them, hop on over to cardkingdom.com/LRR. They're a great place to buy your Magic cards, and we continue to recommend them because they're good folks, and they have very fast shipping and great customer service. And if you tell them Loading Ready Run sent me button, please, they'll give you a little 1-inch button, which I have been misrepresenting recently. I thought it was a reprint of your brainstorming wrong because someone wrote it down wrong in the spreadsheet. It's actually your brainstoning wrong because of the card, the Brainstone, in Modern Horizons 2.
Brainstoning wrong.
You're brainstoning wrong. Yeah.
As far as I can tell from deck lists I've looked at, including Brainstone is the first mistake you may have made.
Is that just like a personal attack to Wheeler, or?
It is now. No, I'm so sure that
Ben Wheeler, you heard it here.
this card must have its place. Like I want to disagree with myself entirely. I just wanted to make the joke because this card seems like it's cool, but it is kind of expensive. So maybe just for that reason, I don't know. Commander only? Is it in any modern decks?
I have no idea. Not a clue.
Okay.
So yeah, we're going to hit on a bunch of different topics today because, yeah, there aren't any actual official Kamigawa Neon Dynasty spoilers out beyond what we've already discussed. There's a couple leaks, I think. I honestly haven't been paying that close attention. But yeah, everyone's in the sort of the treading water mode in terms of Magic content. Sorry, we were talking before we came online that Paul was looking at it was the Magic subreddit, and someone had a thread that was like, does anyone ever skull clamp their pets? You know, like put your hand like on your pet's head, like your dog or cat's head, in the manner of a skull clamp. And one of the comments was just like, boy, I can't wait for spoilers. It's just like, wow, we have nothing to talk about, huh? It's like, do you ever grab your pet? Yeah, I guess. Sure. Could we talk about Magic, please? So, yeah, first up, let's, because he said it would be brief, I guess, which I don't know if that means a good thing or a bad thing. Nelson, when we recorded last time, it was the Sunday or day 2 of the Alchemy Arena Open, which you were going to be participating in. And so that's now happened. We're recording this, by the way, for those who enjoy the edification of dates, on Friday the 21st. So how'd that go?
Real quick, I just want to thank all of our Patreon sponsors at patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun. We got on a tangent about Brainstone, which was my fault. And
I forgot about the Patreon shout out.
yeah,
I appreciate that, Nelson.
I want to thank them for keeping the lights on, keeping us doing all we do here, even when there's only skull clamping your pet to talk about, really. So, yeah, when we were on the last podcast, I was like in the middle of choosing my deck, and I did. I went with Mardu Dragons. I was discussing and considering various options. You were
like, I want to stick with dragons.
Yeah, I definitely knew I was going to play dragons on the second day, and you said something that turned out to be very foreboding. Said, oh, it's 8 round. Like, you have to get up to 8 wins to bring the maximum amount of money. That's a lot of your day that you're going to be playing this. And I don't know, if you know me, you like whine about this on the stream sometimes, or if you're familiar, I have 2 small children. And I take care of them almost every day, or at least for some part of every day, pretty much, except occasionally when I used to go to GPs back in the before times. But yeah, I didn't realize they were only going to give us, like, I didn't look, it's just blinking there right in front of you, but they only gave you 12 hours from like 6 a.m. Pacific when the event starts. Like, you have 2 hours to sign up, and then you only have another 10 hours after sign up window is done. You can start playing right away, but 12 hours total to get your games in. And I managed to fit 2 matches in the afternoon. I went 1-1, and then I thought I was going to finish the game's up after bedtime, which for me is like around 6-7 p.m. PST, when I can kind of get my kids down. And then I booted up the stream. It was like a Sunday night, and and then I booted up Arena. And I was like, all right, let's play some. And like the event had just ended. It just like pops up. It's like, here's your 5,000 gems. Like, you can have your entry fee back. And I was like, which is such a bad feeling. Like, it's, I don't know. it's distinct, but close to as bad as like, you know, when you lose because it's partly your own fault and partly you got really lucky. Like you know, the worst. Imagine the worst like big tournament loss you can have. It's like the sleep in loss or the like confusion or the show up to the wrong event hall loss. Like the various ways that you don't get to play Magic.
It's like when day 2 at a Magic Fest starts an hour earlier than day 1 did, and so you sleep through it.
Yeah, and you thought you read it right. You know, this was my mistake. I'm not trying to put this mistake on anyone else, but they did change, I believe, like they've changed the way that Magic Opens work. Certainly this one we talked about was more expensive and the prizes went a bit higher at the top end. But I think they also shortened the window. Like I thought we had at least 14 or 18 hours to finish day 2 last time because I don't remember running into this problem.
I don't remember, but I believe you.
To finish the games up after bedtime. So I couldn't do that. Dad's out. I don't know if I'll play the next Arena Open, to be honest, because I don't know if I'll have any more time on the
have the time Sunday to do day 2 if you make it.
Play day 2. Yeah. So that's my Arena story. I played Marty Dragons, and I only ran into Blue White, Keys to the Archive, Teferi, Who Slows the Sunset. It's a control deck, but it really it revolves around these 2 cards. Like you get the keys we've talked about, so you have some cool, powerful spell from the Strixhaven Archives, and then Teferi, Who Slows the Sunset, can untap a land and an artifact. So he's hilariously like the cheapest Teferi yet. We used to have the 5 mana Teferi that untaps 2 lands, so it was like it sneakily only costs 3 mana, and then there's the regular 3 mana Teferi that always costs 3 mana. And this new one costs 4 mana, but in this deck, the play pattern generally is that you untap 3 mana worth of stuff immediately when you cast it, and then you have a counter spell and a Fateful Absence up.
Okay, right, yeah. So Teferi, Who Slows the Sunset, this was from AFR. Wow, I forgot that this was in AFR.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like an AFR card at all.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm sorry. Midnight Hunt. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Pardon
me. Newer than that. Right. It does make more sense.
Okay. Still, I don't think I've ever really seen this card ever.
Wolf was from AFR.
It's 2 white blue for a 4 loyalty Teferi +1. Choose up to 1 target artifact, up to 1 target creature, and up to 1 target land. Untap them. Untap the chosen permanents you control. Tap the chosen permanents you don't control. Oh, I see. So you can tap their stuff down.
Yeah.
You gain 2 life. -2. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand. The rest in the bottom of your library in any order. So that's what? Strategic planning? The card?
Is it the top 3? Then, yeah, and puts 2 in the graveyard in your hand. That is strategic planning. Yeah.
And then -7, you get an emblem with untap all permanents you control during each opponent's untap step, and you draw a card during each opponent's draw step. Well, that just seems silly. So yeah, I guess. So yeah, you're saying that with the +1, if you're untapping a mana rock and a mana creature and a land, then Teferi only costs 1 mana.
No, you don't need a creature. It's like a plays Doomscar or Wrath of God kind of deck. You don't keep creatures on your side of the board. It's just that the keys add 2 mana. So you have a Soul Ring. Key to the Archive is the Soul Ring.
Okay.
So you have a Soul Ring you untap and a land, so 3 mana worth of stuff.
Right. Yeah. Key to the Archive is because I've been playing the Arena Cube, and Key to the Archive is goofy. A reminder, we talked about this last time, but 4 mana artifact enters tapped and taps for 2 mana in any combination of colors, and then when it enters the battlefield, you draft a card from the Key to the Archives spell book, and then discard a card.
I think it's okay that we're bringing it up again. It's like it's sort of the it girl right now. It's getting played in Historic and Alchemy.
Yeah, and this is the one that is full of cards from the Mystical Archive. So like Counterspell and Approach the Second Sun, and like it's a bunch of. Yeah. I think each of them either involves 2 mana pips of the same color or 2 mana pips of explicitly different colors.
There's Demonic Tutor
and Approach don't. Regrowth. Okay. But anyway, the point is, this helps you cast the things. So yeah, untapping Key with Teferi seems pretty powerful.
Yeah, in the Teferi deck, like they can usually pick if you have there's 5 favorite cards, like they'll usually either get Counterspell, Time Warp, Demonic Return, or Demonic Tutor, Day of Judgment, or like maybe their worst option is going to be Electrolyze or Approach to the Second Sun, as you said. Yeah. So they usually get something that fits with their blue-white control game plan pretty well.
Yeah. Cool.
I've also been playing this card in Historic in just like mono brown ramp strategy, and the Key to the Archive card sometimes just gets thrown out in that deck because the deck's plan doesn't care as much about all of those spells. It's just another copy of Hedron Archive, essentially another mana rock that taps for 2, which you use to ramp up to your like Paradox. What's it called? Paradox Engine plus either the Ominous Traveler or a Sararak, the Arclich from AFR. Yeah, so that's got some fun play patterns too.
Neat.
Yeah. But yeah, I lost day 2 of the Open because I didn't play my games.
Well, fair enough. How did the game that you won go?
Good. Yeah. I mean, I think the Mardu Dragons, or probably any of the dragon strategies, have like, it felt like a 50-50 against blue-white control, which is nice. Like this alchemy matchup, I think, is probably a pretty common one. The dragon deck we've talked about, I don't think is going anywhere. Like I don't think it's been ousted from its fairly high up seat in the meta. And then there's also like a fast green deck that's very similar to the standard deck. Like that, the green deck, the mono green deck doesn't even get that much from alchemy. In fact, the Esca's Chariot's been nerfed, but that deck is just still good. Like that's the kind of alchemy rebalancing, showing its colors as being a success, I think, where you have like, they get 2 cards or one, some of them don't even play the 3-drop. They just play the pup. Like they get this one mana, 1/2 that gains you a life. It's not Ferocious Pup, but something like that. Anyways, so that the green decks don't get much from alchemy, but they still just, play Ranger's class on turn 2. And then,
the one from Crimson Vow?
Well, Crimson Vow Alchemy. It's an alchemy card. It's an uncommon though. 1 mana, 1/2 green wolf that pumps your next creature.
Oh, that one. Tenacious Pup. Yes.
Tenacious Pup. I'm sorry, I forgot its name. So cool. It's me. I'm gonna pump your next guy.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, 50. It's about 50-50, I think, in the blue-white versus dragons match.
All right.
Yeah.
Neat.
Also happening on Arena right now, if we want to talk about it, is the Cube just ended. RIP. I saw a whole bunch of my streamer friends drafting Cube, but right up until the last second, they're like finishing their matches after the queue has ended or whatever on their streams.
Yeah.
Instead of Cube, we have the Mad Science event on now. This allows you to play an alchemy deck, so it's the cards from alchemy, but with a caveat that you get. Each player has an emblem that says, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, amass X, where X is that spell's mana value. So this is kind of like Gisa and Geralf's sort of playground, right? Like Geralf is going to be very good in this because he gives your zombie tokens flying. So probably going to be a lot of blue decks, a lot of blue mirrors going around with either white or white-black or red-white to pair with. And I want to say about this event that it's a little frustrating to me. Just I want to talk about the structure of it. It's 2,000 coins or 400 gems to get in. And then you only get coins and card styles back. It doesn't show you beforehand on the page. Maybe there's a link to see which 12 styles are available.
Oh, I can tell you.
Yes, okay, you can.
It
can show you right away.
Dorothea, Eruth, Geralf, Grolnok, Helena and Elena, Jacob Hauken, Catilda, Old Rutstein, Runo Stromkirk, Thalia, Torrens, and Toxrill.
Okay, so like all legendary creatures, like Brawl commanders, essentially. And so maybe if this is how you get your Brawl commander, that's probably who we're kind of most appealing to, because these aren't like card styles for strictly competitive cards. There's some good cards here. Thalia gets played in lots of things, for example. You've got to grind this thing out. And it's only play until you have 2 match losses. I'm guessing it's best of 1. But, but, it's just coins in, coins out, and you've like got to grind away at it. And you can, you're probably not going to get a duplicate card style, but you've got to get 12 wins in it before you guarantee get the one you're looking for. Yeah,
you're only going to get your entry fee back if you do all 4 wins. It's 4 or 2.
Right.
And so it's for 0 wins you get a card style.
Yeah.
For 1 you get 2 and 500 gold. For 2 wins you get 2 cards and 1,000 gold. For 3 wins you get 3 cards and 1,500 gold. And only at 4 wins do you get more than 2,000. You get 2,500 gold and 3 card styles. So,
okay. So you actually have to play it 4 times to like minimum 4 times if you want to guarantee getting the one you want. Okay.
Yeah.
So.
But you will always receive. They say Each card style has an equal likelihood of being received, but you will always receive styles you do not yet own. So that's nice, at least.
I mean, paying 2,000 gold and then just resigning is like not even that bad versus the card styles in the store. So I guess it's like it's not a super expensive situation. It just, I don't know, it kind of irks me that like they made the Mad Science format, and then they also attached like these prizes, which seem to kind of more belong to Brawl, and it just kind of feels like a weird pairing. And this happens regularly. You know, the arena team has prizes that they want to give to people and events they want to run, and it's like, I don't know. I don't actually have the solution. I look at the Mad Science event and I'm like, oh, cool, a different way to play Magic. People will probably enjoy that just for the sake of the games. You would hope so. And it's paywalled. Like, I don't know. I just think this and Brawl and you know, some of the other, whenever the goofy ones come up, it's like, I just don't think it makes a lot of sense when you're going to have a wildly different Magic experience to also charge for it and make it a competition. I think it'd make more sense if it was just like, this was a midweek Magic, like where it's free and you can play as much as you want, but there's not very much prize either. That's just my opinion. But yeah, hopefully that'll be fun for people.
I'll probably check it out.
Yeah,
I have been drafting. Huh?
Do you like casting Opt?
I don't hate it.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't hate casting Opt.
Okay.
I like Opt. In fact, we talked a couple weeks ago. One of my favorite arts of 2021 was the Japanese Mystical Archive.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Really good.
I suppose you just play a lot of the unsummon effects too, because you're going to.
That's what I did. Yeah, I grabbed the Teferi deck I was talking about earlier, and just replaced the Wrath of Gods with unsummons. So that's where I'm gonna start out in Mad Science.
Sounds good. I have been drafting. I went back to do some Crimson Vow, which has been going okay. I did enjoy Crimson Vow draft. I've enjoyed it more than Midnight Hunt.
Okay.
But man, last night I haven't flooded out so hard on Arena in such a long time.
Drag.
Yeah, it sucked.
Sorry.
I mean, hey, it's Magic, but you know, it's one of those ones where it's like you keep a. I turned to Kathleen and I was like, I kept a hand with 4 spells and 3 lands. And since then I've drawn 8 lands. And it's like I think I could have had a shot to win this game, but
that is not great. Yeah.
Most of my deck's not showing up. Oh well. But yeah, I had a deck with 2 Heroes Downfall and 2 Bleed Dry.
Nice.
Because getting past very good black removal very late.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. So anyway, that said, yeah, no, I've been enjoying Crimson Vow, certainly more than Midnight Hunt. And I didn't hate Midnight Hunt. We were talking on LRRMTG this week on the stream. We were James and I someone asked us. We were waiting for something to queue, I think it was, and we were like, all right, quick AMA while our opponent ropes us or something. I don't know what spawned it, but there was a question of like, you know, what was your favorite draft format from the past year? And I can't remember James's exact order, but I agreed with it. And I'm trying to remember what it was. What was your favorite drafts of 2021? Because I think it was Strixhaven. This is for me. Strixhaven, Kaldheim, AFR, Crimson Vow, Midnight Hunt. I think.
Nice. I think I'd go Kaldheim, Crimson Vow, AFR, Midnight Hunt, and then Strixhaven at the bottom.
Interesting. Why is that?
Yeah. I don't know. I found every deck in Strixhaven felt... I don't know. It all felt very samey to me. And I know that's not accurate, right? Because the Prismari deck was wild. But I don't know. It just didn't have a lot of variety. Not every deck felt the same. Every event felt very similar to me.
Right.
I think that's partly a byproduct of learned lesson. Like, you going through your draft, trying to make sure you have an environmental sciences, an on-color creature, and something else always in your sideboard. And every school that you're in, you're trying to make sure you have some number of learn cards to go get those, so you have the extra added value. And the like bonus spells are from a small pool, right? Like sometimes someone has Mascot Exhibition and blows you out, but mostly they cast some kind of slightly overcosted 2 or 3 drop, and then they can go get a free land, or they have a 5-mana 4/4, and so like that play pattern happened a lot, right?
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me, right? That
also, I think like the blue-green deck and the black-white deck were a fair bit more popular, so you probably ran into those decks. You know, like your opponent's doing kind of the same thing. They're either trying to like aggro you out with either Boros or black-white, and they have flyers, or they're just trying to get like huge green tokens into play. And those are kind of the 2 most common things. And I also think that the schools were pretty balanced. Like those, I said there was 2 that were most popular, but yeah, the draft set was pretty well balanced. So like each draft match was pretty typically coming to a head at around the same time. I don't know. Those are my opinions on why Strixhaven might feel safe.
Well, it's odd because like Strixhaven and Crimson Vow, I both enjoyed. Like what I enjoyed about them was they were both fairly dynamic feeling. But I think Crimson Vow pulled it off much better than Strixhaven did. Right? They both felt aggressive, right? Like the Silver Quill decks came at you pretty quickly.
I did because Strixhaven was back for quick draft this past week, and I didn't realize until yesterday because the new Playblade hides everything. And so I was like, oh, I got to get some quick drafts of Strixhaven. Excuse me. I had to manage to clamp down on my microphone before I sneezed there. And it's just I don't remember the name of it, the 1-mana 0/1 that gets +2/+2 with Magecraft.
Clever Lumimancer.
Yeah, and I just got demolished. I just got absolutely dismantled by that.
There was a while there where that was like a good standard deck. I was playing it until before Crimson Vow, but after Midnight Hunt.
Because they were like, they did the 2-mana. They played that on 1. They played the Stonerise Spirit, the like 1/2 flyer on 2. On 3, they played Sparring Regimen, which if you remember Sparring Regimen, that's a great way to lose a game of Magic. And then on 4, they did like the one that gives it the sorcery that gives a creature like +2/+2 and lifelink, or 2
Vigilance?
counters and lifelink.
Expanded Anatomy?
No, that's one of the lessons. This was it's like 1 in a black.
1 in a black for what is that one called?
Yeah, I was remember that and Show of Confidence, which then got copied. So the Lumimancer hit me for like 11 that turn. Right? And I was just like, oh, okay, I'm just very dead. Cool. All right.
Essence Infusion.
Thank you. Essence Infusion. That's the one.
No worries.
Yeah.
My favorites for the year were Kaldheim right at the top, firmly. And then as a fair jump down to AFR, I think was my second favorite, then Strixhaven. It was close between these 2. Pretty close. I played both of them quite a bit. And then Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow. Crimson Vow just still had, I still only played a handful of drafts for whatever reason. I just haven't left any Crimson Vow event feeling like, hey, that was great. I really want to draft this again and build X deck, which is normally what happens. Like I'll lose to something in a draft environment, or I'll win, and if I win, I'm like, this was great. I can't wait to draft it again. This deck was fun to play. Or if I lose, I'm like, oh, I got to try that. In Crimson Vow, for whatever reason, like all 3 of my drafts or something have been like, okay, I think this deck is pretty good. And then I run into some, maybe I win a match, but then I lose the next 2. And it's like, I didn't really like what my opponents were doing. And my deck sucks.
Actually, I'm going to reevaluate mine. Because I've actually, now that I'm thinking about it more, I found Crimson Vow to be more bomb heavy than Midnight Hunt, which... So here's the thing, because it's trying to disentangle the draft format as a whole with how the draft format played on Arena,
right?
Because when the draft for Adventures in the Forgotten Realms developed after the first couple weeks, it was basically if you're not red black, you're losing, which was bad, right? Like like the red black aggressive deck with that goblin and sacrifice stuff like that just rolled over everything else, and that was bad. But I liked that format beforehand. Conversely, Midnight Hunt, we had day one of that format, LSV famously streaming for like 7 hours, doing nothing but force blue-black and never drop a game. And it was like, oh, great, it's this problem again. But that all course corrected. And then Midnight Hunt was actually a pretty healthy format with a diversity of decks and colors. And like, yeah, the blue-black deck was good, but there were other decks that were also very good, and you didn't feel like you biffed it if you weren't in the blue-black deck. So I don't know. Maybe Crimson Vow is actually at the bottom of my list as well.
I got through some AFR drafts victoriously when I wasn't red-black.
So did I, but early in the format.
Okay, I had my very last one was actually just a crazy green-white deck. But I think it is true, though, that like Midnight Hunt, LSV figured this out. And I don't think he was the only one. I think it was like blue-black was fairly popular in draft, like in the early days of the release of the set. And like by the time you could get the thing on paper, like by the time the actual release had happened, it had settled. Like blue-black was no longer. It only took like a couple weeks of like, oh, you have to draft blue-black before people were like, okay, well, if everyone's drafting blue-black, then the following cards get a bit better because there's no good blue-black common answer to.
I didn't even think it was a couple weeks. That's the thing. The meta moved so quickly on Arena.
Yeah. It was like maybe 8 days or something like that. I don't know exactly, but certainly within a month of Midnight Hunt coming out, it was like, yeah, you can definitely be green-white. You can definitely be green-red. You can be blue-red. Here's how you do it. So I totally agree. Whereas with AFR, it was like, it seemed to slowly creep up that like, oh, you can be red-black and have a really consistent red-black sacrifice theme where you steal their creatures and sacrifice them to Sepulchre Ghoul. And like, it's pretty good against bombs because you can steal their bomb creature. And then as the format developed, it was like, oh, red-black's theme is actually also treasures. So you can just be like a low-to-the-ground red-black sacrifice curve and just splash whatever bomb people pass you. Even if it's Tiamat, you'll just cast Tiamat off treasures. Don't worry about it. And that's kind of how the format ended. And that is a stroke against AFR. I just think that AFR was like kind of one of the most important things, if not like the most important set that came out last year, where like, you know, D&D and Magic are finally together. And I really think thematically, like as a Vorthos or whatever, like the lore and the feel of the format was a total home run. Not that there weren't other home runs, like Kaldheim and Strixhaven were both good as well, but it just seemed like there was a lot riding on AFR, and I appreciate that I got through that whole draft format, like all of those weeks. I still wanted to play, even though I knew like, okay, I should probably try to be red-black. That just didn't bother me as much. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it, and I realized that the decks that I liked drafting the most from my two favorites, Strixhaven and Kaldheim, were very similar in that they were like multicolored, dirtle around and then do big stuff decks. Like in Kaldheim, the Path to the World tree, the 1 and a green enchantment that you get to go look for a basic, and then if you pay, it's like 2 mana plus a mana of every color. Then you like gain 2 life and draw 2 cards and make a bear, and your opponent you deal 2 damage to a creature. It was this like just this ridiculous weird uncommon that did like a bunch of stuff. So yeah, it was target opponent loses 2 life, you gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. It deals 2 damage to a creature, and you make a 2/2 bear. And so it was like Path to the World tree and a bunch of snow. You were like base green, blue snow stuff with as many Bergstriders as you would, as people would pass you, because Bergstrider was just an unreally good card.
Yep.
It was the 4/4 snow giant for 5 that if you cast with snow, well, it was ETB tap a creature, but if you cast it with snow, then that creature didn't untap during its controller's next untap step.
It's just Chilly Bee on the floor, right? Like every time you give us 5 mana Frost Breath on a body, we're going to play
Chilly Bee on the floor.
Yeah. Or big Frostlinks, if you want to say it that way. Frostlinks usually pretty good too, but for whatever reason, if you make Frostlinks a 5-drop, it's better.
Yeah. So anyway, that was a similar thing where you just cast all the random bombs in other colors. And then, of course, I've mentioned before, Strixhaven is just like big teamer stupidity.
Yeah.
Right. You're just like, yeah, I'll take all these 7 and 8 mana spells. That's fine.
And maybe you'll time warp too. put it back on the top with Biblioplex.
Done that before. Yep.
It's possible that I did have more fun playing the Strixhaven games than the AFR games.
They were really fun.
I'm just wistfully attached to AFR as a dork,
right?
Right? Like there's both things are valid, right? So
yeah,
maybe if I like tried to very logically separate it, it's like Strixhaven is a peg higher than AFR because Strixhaven didn't have the problem that like there was one deck that was the best. You could definitely be all 5 decks.
Yeah,
I think red blue
plenty.
Yeah, I think red blue and green black were both kind of the bottom, right? Like they weren't as popular. It was a bit harder to make them work, in my opinion, what I saw. But still, you could do it
in Strixhaven.
In Strixhaven, yeah. Like I don't know. Did you go Prismari often? You went Teamer plenty, right?
Yeah,
but
I went Prismari occasionally. But I preferred Teamer because it's like field trip, right?
Yeah,
like ramps you and goes and gets your environmental sciences.
And getting to play the off-color, like, blue-green cram session so that you would just, like, be able to load up on bonus spells, right? Like, cram session, a black card, ostensibly, like, but you can play it in Teamer because it's also hybrid green.
Mm-hmm.
Really good blue card, right? Where it's just, like, 2 mana, spell, doesn't need a target. You can always cast it, and then it hits your learn board for a second spell for another 2 or 3 mana, right?
And then Quandrix, not the Pledge Mage. The Apprentice?
The Apprentice to go get lands off the top of your library?
Yeah.
Right.
I love casting or having a Quandrix Apprentice in play. And then, like I said, casting Field Trip is very good, but particularly the... I don't remember the name of the card. It's the one with Kesmina on it. It's the card draw spell.
Yes, Mentor's Guidance.
Thank you, Mentor's Guidance. So it's 2 and a blue, draw a card, or scry 1 and draw a card. But you copy it if you control a planeswalker, cleric, druid, shaman, warlock, or wizard. So if you have you put the apprentice out on turn 2, and then you cast Mentor's Guidance. So the apprentice triggers, you get a land out of your deck, then you scry 1, and then draw a card, and then you do all of that again. Again, I think I said this. Did I say this exact thing last week? I've talked about this
Welcome back
recently.
to Tap Alzheimer's, where
you don't want to do
remember anything ever.
Yeah, you don't want to actually do that on turn 2 into 3 because then you have too many cards in your hand. But the point is, it's powerful.
Mm-hmm. It feels good.
Yeah, it feels good. Yeah. Anyway, should we move on to something that feels sad, at least, or unfortunate, which is a shame, which is that Unfinity has been delayed.
Yeah,
I'm bummed about
sorry,
that.
you too.
Yeah, we didn't.
I mean, I'm
we
sorry
didn't,
for me too, but
yeah, we did not know about this ahead of anybody else, because they're under no obligation to keep us informed about these things. So,
and what are you going to do about it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This all came up like while James and I were streaming. We were like, "Oh, what?" So yeah, it's COVID-related supply chain challenges, which sucks, and so. It was going to be released on April Fool's Day, April 1st, 2022, and it's being delayed until the second half of 2022.
So you're telling me the Evergiven was full of boxes of Unfinity?
It seems likely at this point. That's why they were trying to Tokyo drift through the Suez Canal to get it to us sooner. And the gamble did not pay off.
Yep. Darn. Yep. Oh, well. I don't know how that's going to affect scheduling for stuff we have planned, but we'll figure that out. Mm-hmm. So, update there. Following on from last week, we talked about the Pauper format panel, or the PFP, which was the group of folks coming together to discuss changes for the Pauper format to actually get something moving. From Wizards in terms of bans and such for the format, and they've already made a banned and restricted announcement. And they banned 3 cards. Atog, Bonder's Ornament, which is a card I have never heard of, and Prophetic Prism. And there's a video, because there's one of Gavin's Good Morning Magics where he goes into it. But also, there's a deeply involved article on the Mothership going into each of these bans and why, which I'll maybe just read a bit about. So let's talk about Atog first. Good old actual ATOG from Antiquities?
Antiquities, first printing in the second expansion of Magic.
Yeah. So it's 1 and a red for a 1/2 creature, and you sacrifice an artifact to give ATOG +2/+2 until end of turn. Or, if I may, from the original printing, for 0 mana, +2/+2 until end of turn. Each time you use this ability, you must choose one of your artifacts in play and place it in the graveyard. This artifact cannot be one that is already on its way to the graveyard, and artifact creatures killed this way may not be regenerated.
Got to get all the closet or the corner cases in there.
Yeah, early R&D really wanted to let us know you can't sacrifice a permanent for 2 different purposes.
I love the term "on its way to the graveyard." It's like, oh, you killed my thing. All right, I'll just pick it up and I'll put it over. But wait. So the reasons. Why is ATOG banned in Pauper? The lead line here is the first and clearest thing to us is that something from Affinity needed to go. There are 2 primary reasons. 1, its popularity and impact are extremely high. To help quantify this, we took a look at the play numbers on Magic Online, where it's the most popular deck, over twice as popular as the next most played deck. While it is surprisingly not dominant in overall win rate, this is in part because it is metagame warping.
Yeah, mirror matches don't affect win rate, right?
Yeah. And the play pattern of the deck can be very non-interactive and frustrating, killing in ways that happen quickly and cannot be blocked. A lot of kills are fueled by ATOG and Disciple of the Vault, or ATOG with Fling or Wedding Invitation to do a, quote, count to 20 style kill. So, we know ATOG is a beloved card that's been something people have enjoyed since it first appeared in Antiquities. There's a lot of people who like that Pauper has a chance to play with this card, so we did investigate several other options. We first talked about Disciple of the Vault. So a reminder, Disciple of the Vault is a single black mana for a 1/1 human cleric. Whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may have target opponent lose 1 life.
And this card did get banned in Standard back in like 2004 or something.
I remember that.
Yeah. It has been banned before.
They say a lot of the powerful starts are fueled by ATOG with multiple disciples. However, ATOG is the real problem card, giving you a free, repeated sacrifice outlet that can deal the bulk of the damage. Without Disciple, we predict you would see a movement to more Flings or Wedding Invitations. Disciple was not even a card played in some previous versions of the deck. We also talked about banning the Modern Horizons 2 Bridges, which would put the deck back to where it was before Modern Horizons 2. However, that was still not good.
Other decks use the bridges, and yeah, it's worth noting that Affinity was in check before Modern Horizons 2 gave it this awesome new tools.
Yeah. They do say, yes, we could try banning 1 or 2 bridges, but that's a very surgical approach that has no guarantee to solve the issue given the number of colors Affinity plays. Additionally, we think there might be enjoyable versions of Affinity that use the bridges, but don't have ATOG to kill quickly. The quick kills from ATOG are a big part of the issue. They looked at banning Deadly Dispute as well, which is
Deadly
the one
Dispute's
from AFR.
incredible in the deck.
Yeah. So it's a 1 and a black instant as an additional cost to cast it. Sacrifice a creature or artifact, and you draw 2 cards and create a treasure token, which is itself an artifact.
And a piece of your situation, obviously. An artifact that fuels all your other cards. And the thing you're sacrificing is probably an Ichor Wellspring. So it sort of feels like Ancestral Recall. You require some setup from these other cards, but you have this bauble on the table that's going to draw you a card if you can sacrifice it. And then you sacrifice it, and this even gives you a mana back through the treasure token. So for 1 mana, you draw 3 cards. Pretty typical play pattern.
That's ridiculous. So, yeah, basically they're, you can read the article for the in-depth breakdown, but, they're like, we figured ATOG was the problem, but we didn't want to be like, all right, well, we just ban ATOG. So we looked at many other options and what that would do, and we kept coming back to it and realized, no, it really does have to be ATOG. And they finished that section by saying, finally, because I'm sure some people will be curious, with ATOG banned, we think there's a decent chance we can return Sojourner's Companion to the deck in a future banned and restricted announcement, because this one's currently banned. This is 7 mana for a 4/4 artifact creature Salamander with Affinity and artifact land cycling for 2.
I did not know that was banned.
Yeah. However, we don't want to make any changes. We don't want to make that change currently. We want to see how Affinity turns out after these bans first. So, they say most of you likely expected an Affinity ban. The other ones might take more explanation. So let's dig in. So the other ones, they are grouping together. So Prophetic Prism, we are, or at least I'm fairly familiar with. It's 2 mana for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card, and then for 1 and tap, add 1 mana of any color. So Prophetic Prism filters your mana, also ETB, draw a card. Mm-hmm. So that they're grouping together with Bonder's Ornament, which is a 3 mana artifact. Tap to add 1 mana of any color, and then for 4 and tap, each player who controls a permanent named Bonder's Ornament draws a card. This was printed in, it looks like Commander 20. Ikoria. Oh, okay.
Commander Ikoria, right? Not regular Ikoria.
Yes.
But Commander Ikoria.
Yes.
Okay, so this is from a Commander deck exclusively.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and then it either was a common in its first printing on Commander, and so then
it's only got the one printing.
Okay,
it was
all right. I wasn't
common.
Sure. I thought maybe it snuck into Modern Horizons as well, or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so just Commander. Sorry.
So, with the ATOG ban locked in, we looked for what other deck might emerge and be a new problem. We all agreed we needed to hit something from the Urzatron decks. The reasons are many. The data bears out that Tron is extremely powerful. Its win rate on Magic Online Leagues is among the highest, even higher than Affinity, though there was less hate being played against Tron. And when you look at its matchup win percentages after sideboarding, it had a positive win rate against almost every deck. Affinity was advantaged against Tron in Game 1, while Tron did move to an advantaged matchup post-board. It involved bringing in a lot of cards. With Affinity substantially weakened, because they banned ATOG, it opened Tron up to reclaim the spot. Pre-Modern Horizons 2, the last time many players would say that we had a stable Pauper format, Tron was the most dominant deck. Tron pushes out a lot of mid-range and control decks, and we banned Expedition Map last year to try and make an impact, but that ban ended up doing very little.
Tron's been really good in Pauper for a long time. Like, it's usually part of the conversation, if not best.
The conversation.
One of the best decks,
yeah. So they say, we investigated several possible bans here to moderate the deck, but not to remove it entirely. While it's possible at some point we could entirely ban the deck by way of removing the Urzatron lands, we'd much rather find ways to reduce its power before going to such an extreme step. I'd like you to walk through what we didn't hit and then the reasons why we hit the cards we did. One card we looked at was Moment's Peace, because the deck uses it to time walk the aggressive decks until it can stabilize. Its synergy with Mystical Teachings is also problematic. A single teaching represents 4 skipped combat steps. Woof. However, there are a lot of replacements for Moment's Peace. Tangle, while weaker, it does a lot of what Moment's Peace does. Respite is a card you could consider. With Affinity gone, there's also a higher chance that Tron lists could simply play additional copies of Stonehorn Dignitary, which is the rhino that makes people skip their combat phase. Additionally, this only hits Tron on the axis of weakening it against aggressive decks. So we looked at Mystical Teachings itself. The toolbox engine of the deck is a huge strength, where it can find whatever it needs in the long game. Tutor with Flashback certainly fits the bill for a bannable card. However, replacing the Teachings engine with more raw card draw, with cards like Compulsive Research or Forbidden Alchemy, the latter of which digs for answers, would make the deck a little less versatile, but still powerful in a lot of the same ways. Finally, Mystical Teachings is a card that was previously played in blue-black control decks, a deck that mostly vanished from the meta because of other pressures, but might be able to return at some point. We looked at Crop Rotation, a card that you can Teachings for to make sure you hit your Tron consistently. They usually play 2, however, that only slightly hits the deck's consistency. It just doesn't do enough that they don't think banning it would help. Finally, we looked at bans that would impact the loops this deck can create with Mnemonic Wall and Ghostly Flicker or Ephemerate. It's possible some of these blink cards might end up being a health issue for the format in the future. However, those pieces have significant redundancy. Ghostly Flicker, Ephemerate, Displace, and play only a small role in the deck's plan, with 1 or 2 copies that are tutorable by Mystical Teachings. So they continue. However, as we were looking at these options, above all else, there's one thing that Tron decks get to do here that is wildly powerful. Have access to tons of mana and play all the best cards of all the colors. The fact the deck can play all 5 colors for free is largely on the back of Bonder's Ornament and Prophetic Prism. Looking at what makes this deck so strong is casting things like Mystical Teaching for whatever the best answer is in any color and having access to anything post-sideboard. Bonder's Ornament is the more problematic of the two. It was never really intended for competitive constructed formats as a card that is only common as a technicality of how we do rarity in commander decks. And it allows Tron to never run out of gas, keeping pace with both the Monarch decks and any control deck effortlessly. This is a huge problem. We talked about banning just Ornament, but we didn't think it would be enough. The 5-color Tron decks thrived before Ornament as well. And Prophetic Prism is a card which has long been a staple of decks trying to play as many colors as possible, with Tron chief among them. I'm summarizing and abridging a lot of this article. I do encourage you to read it if you're into Pauper and want to read a deep dive onto all these bans. Additionally, a small part of Prism's ubiquity has been that it helps make another powerful engine, Flicker Effects, also not dead. So Ghostly Flicker can always cantrip with a Prism on the board, and this slightly reduces the power of Ghostly Flicker both here and in other decks. Because Ghostly Flicker, a reminder, is 2 and a blue for an instant, and you get to blink, which is to say exile and then return to the battlefield immediately. 2 artifacts, creatures, and or lands you control. So you can be like, the thing I actually want to do, and then also my Prophetic Prism, just to draw a card. And so it's like, oh, okay. On a larger format scale, we think cards that let you easily play all 5 colors for free are probably not healthy for the format. Prism has done that for a while. To be clear, Manalith and Mana Silex are not an issue. We're not going down some ban everything until Manalith is too good path. This issue concerns having the mana to cast combined with returning your card. The philosophy here is not that different from banning Arkham's Astrolabe, which has seen bans in multiple formats for both power and enabling access to colors too freely. So, they say, with the color fixing ban, we expect to see more teamer-centered Tron decks focused around turboing into big creatures. There's a version right now being played by a player named Hirobi on Magic Online called Cascade Tron that has cards like Maelstrom Colossus, Boarding Party, and Annoyed Altasaur that sees powerful gameplay, but is also more answerable than the current 5-color control versions. So, finally, like Sojourner's Companion in Affinity, it's possible we could return Expedition Map in a future banned and restricted update, but we're going to see how Tron shakes out before we do that. So there we go. Big changes to Pauper.
Yeah, I think Pauper players should generally be happy about this overall. I'm not sure if everyone's going to agree that these are the best ways to target these decks, but of course, Pauper players were waiting for something to happen to Affinity because it's taken up such a huge part of the metagame. I wanted to cut in earlier with talking about how Affinity doesn't have the highest win rate, but because it's metagame warping, right? So it's like one of those other decks in the mix there. I know is like Jeremy White's like blue-white Disenchants or something. I can't remember what entirely the deck was, but I saw a good tweet of his where it was just like, I have 3 Dust to Dust in my hand, and my opponent is probably Affinity. I will keep, or it was game 2, and he's getting ready to just card advantage the artifact deck into oblivion. So like when people are taking those kind of steps, you have an issue, and that's happened with Affinity before in other formats. So it's good things happening here. Steps being taken about obvious metagame problems, and thorough explanations being given for the reasoning. So even if you disagree, you know that your format is now like being taken care of on another level than it was a month ago. And we said that last week too, but I think it bears repeating given the chunkiness of this article that we just went through. Prophetic Prism has been in a lot of Pauper decks, and like Pauper leans on it heavily. So yeah, I think probably like the last time I was playing regularly, Tron and Boros were both using it about equally, but I suppose it's more important to Tron. Boros just wanted to have cantrips that they could flicker with their Glinthawks. So yeah, Tron will have to find another way. And I suspect they will, just because the payoff of having Tron lands work, if it's good enough for Modern, it's probably going to continue being good enough for Pauper, but making the deck builders have to work a little bit harder by taking out some of the enablers, I think that's a decent move. And I look forward to seeing how the metagame shakes out. There should be a big MTGO Pauper tournament happening. I think they do one every weekend or whatever, so we should have some metagame info soon.
It's curious to me the one comment about how Bonder's Ornament was a common by technicality, rather than intent. Because I've always wondered how they decide the rarities in Commander when it's like these cards only exist in this deck. this is the only place you can get them. But some of them are common, some of them are uncommon, some of them are rare.
I have an answer for that.
Some of them are mythic. I mean, I was going to follow up with a little bit, but you go.
Well, yeah. So for starters, I want to say like it could just be like throwing darts on a wall, because it's important to remember in the big picture of things, like when you see a rarity symbol on a booster pack, that relates to like thousands or millions or whatever of booster boxes being opened around the world, and like this rarity distribution meaning something within the pack. Whereas if you just buy one box set, it's like, yeah, it's Commander. You have one of each card, right? Yeah. The rarity is one out of this box set.
Yeah.
But tempering that, the Commander decks come out in collections, usually of 4. And so Bonder's Ornament would have been in more than one of those decks. That's
why, yeah. It was the same with, according to some Pauper discussions I'm reading right now, it was the same with Ash Barons. It was that Bonder's Ornament was in, I think, all of the Ikoria Commander decks. So it's technically, it's a common, we're going to say. I don't know, like, I don't understand the breakdown between rares and mythics necessarily. I would love to know how they decide all of that, but yes, in this case, Bonder's Ornament appeared in more than one of the Ikoria Commander decks, so by whatever internal system they use, it's a common, and so, whoops, guess it's in Pauper.
Yeah, I think maybe, like, the fact that the Pauper format panel has now been formed, by Wizards of the Coast, like, we've got, Gavin and whoever else that are paying attention to this and getting these, changes kind of made at that level. Maybe it'll also reflect in future box set releases, because they could have every card with a rare set symbol and it wouldn't matter to the buyer, right? Yeah. Like it does, it's the rarity symbols don't mean anything inside of the box sets. Yeah. They should be a helpful guide for like telling you what reprints were printed at, right? But if they just decided that no Commander card that's new and hasn't been printed a common before in a Commander box set will ever be printed a common again, unless we specifically are trying to inject Pauper, that I think would be a healthy decision, right? Because it doesn't cost them anything, right? We don't need to have commons in our Commander decks. We can just sell people 100 rares for $30 or whatever it is, or $60. I don't know anymore. Inflation's pretty crazy where I live.
Just make them all, at least make them all like uncommon at minimum.
Yeah.
So that you don't upheave Pauper every single time you do a new pre-con Commander deck.
Right. I mean, Artisan is the thing too, maybe. So like make them all rare or make them all mythic, whatever you decide. If there's consideration for these other formats, I think that's wise.
That's true.
And free.
Yeah. It doesn't harm any other format if they're all rare.
Yeah. What's the Joe Biden meme? Guess what? Hurts nobody. Creates jobs. Whatever it is. It's like he's whispering. I don't know the whole quote.
I don't know either.
Yeah. You can hit me in the comments.
All right. Was there anything else that we wanted to touch on before presumably we dive headfirst into the world of Kamigawa spoilers next week?
God, I cannot think of anything.
Okay, then. We don't have to. That's fine.
Yeah.
I think we can call that an episode.
Okay.
All right. Let's call it an episode.
Great.
If you also don't know what else to say until Kamigawa spoilers come out, and you're reading threads about people grabbing their pets with their hand, head on over to cardkingdom.com and get yourself some booster boxes that are already available for pre-sale. You won't know what's inside of them yet, but you'll know that you're getting them from a great store with great shipping. And if you hit cardkingdom.com/LRR and ask for a button, they'll know we sent you, and you'll get a button that says, hey, you're brainstoning wrong. And we need to talk about it.
They also over at Card Kingdom, they've just put up, they've got pre-orders up this week for Commander Collection Black. If that's a thing you're into, I was retooling a Commander deck for the episode of Friday Night Paper Fight we're doing this evening, and I finally got to throw in some stuff from Commander Collection Green. Granted, it was only the Command Tower and the Sol Ring, but I was like, this works. It's Command Tower, Sol Ring, Ghoul Caller Gisa, Liliana Heretical Healer, and then that flips into Defiant Necromancer, Ophiomancer, Phyrexian Arena, Reanimate, Toxic Deluge, and a snake token for the Aphiomancer. Yeah.
Awesome.
Finally, the 2/2 black Death Touch snake. So
1/1. Aphiomancer makes a 1/1. Aphiomancer is a 2/2, but the token's a 1/1.
Sorry, it's a double side. I tell you what got confused there. The token is double sided, and
for
the back
Liliana zombie
is a zombie. Yes,
got it.
So I was reading the wrong part of the. You're absolutely right. It's a 1/1 snake. I don't know. It even says it right there. I could have used all of my eyes instead of the stupid.
It's all right. It's my fault for belligerently knowing what Aphiomancer is.
I'm
sorry.
You? I'm sorry. You can support Nelson's Aphiomancer knowledge also at our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Because you help us do everything that we do, and we tremendously appreciate it.
Help me stop casting Aphiomancer.
Until next time, I've been Graham, joined by Cameron and Nelson.
I was also here.
Paul was here running the tech. Sorry, we're still not used to that. We'll be back in the studio at some point. We'll get back in there. Paul's been here running tech, and Heather gets these online. And thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.